It's here. Halloween week is here, creeps and grave hunters. Can you even freaking believe it? It has been such a whirlwind month. I can't believe we have done videos this entire month of horror history. It's been so freaking exciting. And listen, I know this Halloween looks a little different this year. We're all home. We're all in our PJs. We're all cozy. And I know it's a bummer, but let's look on the bright side, okay? So yeah, sure. There's not going to be a ton of little cute nuggets coming to your door asking for candy, which is one of my favorite parts of the holiday. However, that does mean you're off the hook from spending a ton of money on candy, because it ain't cheap, just to give it away. Because this year, if you want to spend money on candy, it's just for you. And that's kind of exciting, yeah? And also, this year, leave your Spanx in the drawer, honey, because you don't gotta get in that skin-tight costume. You can stay in your onesie, because we're just chilling at home, and with any luck, next year we'll be back to our regular scheduled programming of parties and drinks with friends and hangs and trick-or-treating. So, on that note, go ahead and slaughter that like button with the same enthusiasm you're gonna put into your costume next year. Thank you guys so much. You're so spicy. I love you guys. You're so sweet. As you guys can tell, I'm really cozy this episode. Like, I'm literally in a onesie. And that's all because you guys voted with a very wide margin for our last horror history episode, for now, to be a Poltergeist, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. Not just one of my favorite horror movies, like one of my favorite movies of all time. So I am channeling my inner cozy Carol Ann, because I never know when I might get stuck into a closet or scoot across my kitchen floor. And I want to be prepared. But before we get into the historical event that inspired the film and the potential reason for that historical event, let's dive into a spook tale. And this spook tale, my fun friends, is what I call the ectoplasm sangria. It's essentially, I've tried to create kind of like a cold mulled wine, because I love mulled wine. It's starting to get a little cold here in LA, and so it's delicious, it's yummy. As always, if you want the recipe, go on my Instagram, get it, make it, come back, and let's get on with the show. Ching ching, creeps. Okay, so the 1982 film, directed by Tobe Hooper and written and produced by Spielberg. It was not directed by Spielberg. Y'all think of it as a Spielberg film, which it technically was, but Tobe Hooper actually directed it. And this movie's got everything. We have creepy clowns, scary trees, paranormal activity, ectoplasm, a cute little girl, Zelda Rubinstein. You can't go wrong with Poltergeist. It's got everything you want. It's humor, it's fun, it's scary. It's just an all-around good freaking time. And I'm sure you've seen the film. And if you haven't seen the film, then I guarantee you've at least heard of the supposed curse that is attached to the film. And the legs on this curse, if you will, all come from the fact that a couple of the cast members died during or after the film in really kind of tragic ways. The most famous of those being Heather O'Rourke, who plays Carol Ann, who died shortly after filming the third film. And it really was devastating. She was 12 years old, and she had been misdiagnosed years earlier with Crohn's disease. And she kept kind of having flu-like symptoms on the set of the third film, kind of got better, went home, had a heart attack. Mind you, she's 12 years old. She gets flown into a hospital, and she has emergency surgery on a bowel obstruction. And it turns out that she had been misdiagnosed, and she actually had a congenital intestinal blockage that killed her at 12. And it gets really kind of creepy here, because for a series of a bunch of random events, they needed to do some kind of a reshoot for the third film. Well, Heather was dead, so they had to find a double for her, and the director really didn't want to do this. He felt it was horribly in bad taste. There was pressure from the studios. They did it. The film was released, and it was just, it's a bad film. I'm just going to be honest. It's not a good film, and it was received horribly, a lot of it being kind of the bad taste around the death and the fact that they still put the movie out, even though most of the people didn't want it to come out. It was a whole convoluted thing. Kind of a very Crow situation. And then the woman that plays Dana, the older sister in the original Poltergeist, the Poltergeist we're talking about this time, Dominique Dune, she tragically was murdered shortly after the first film was made. She went to her boyfriend's house, her ex-boyfriend's house apparently, begged for him back, and he choked her out and left her in his driveway in Hollywood to die. So really awful. And I think there was a couple other little things, another person had died. But ultimately, this film is not cursed, okay? I just want to get that out of the way. Shudder did a whole incredible series on cursed films. I think we all can agree that this one doesn't have any strong legs. The Omen, on the other hand, that's a whole other story. That one actually might be cursed. But the first film is the best film, and that is what we're talking about. And it turns out this film was inspired by some pretty crazy history. So when I started doing my research, because it's never as simple to me as I think it is, I kept getting results and things popping up of the Amityville Horror, which we all know about, famously happened in the 70s in Long Island, New York, and Amityville, the horror that the Warrens famously investigated, where this father essentially was possessed and took a rifle and killed his entire family, and then a new family moved into the house and had horrible ghostly paranormal activity, and eventually moved out. And it just became this huge sensation in the 70s. Books were written about it. Obviously, movies were made about it. But it turns out that house is only 5 miles away from the Herman house, which is the house and the events that happened at the house that inspired Poltergeist. So back in 1958, at the Herman household, things get a little bit crazy on February 3rd, which happens to be my mom's birthday. Related? No, but fun fact, happy birthday, Mom. So it's February 3rd. Mr. Herman's at work. He gets a phone call from his wife, Lucille, and she's like, "Hi, honey." That's how I feel people talk back then. "Hi, honey. So there's some weird things happening at the house with me and the kids. All of the bottles are in different rooms. Every carton filled with any kind of liquid is in rooms, and everything keeps popping off. The caps are popping off. Things are spilling, including holy water." Turns out they're very Catholic. That is why they had holy water. And, maybe you should come home. In a typical horror film fashion, except this is real life, he thinks they're being nuts. James, Mr. Herman, James is honey, relax. There's clearly an explanation for this. Then a week later, or a couple days later, he's in the bathroom and he just watches a bottle, or all the bottles in the bathroom, just kind of scuttle away on their own. So he calls the cops because, I guess, what do you do in that situation? I'd probably call the cops too. He calls the cops. They come in. And it's interesting because in the reports, it sounds like the cops were doing their own investigation, basically checking for EMF or weird geological things that could be causing all these cups and things to be moving, and things escalated. It wasn't just cups popping at this point. Now furniture's moving, things are smashing. It's full-blown paranormal activity going up in the Herman household. They're all freaked out. Finally, on February 17th, they're like, you know what? There's no weird geological reason for this. There's no weird moon cycle. There's no EMFs. Everything's kosher. Let's have a priest come in and bless the house. Doesn't really work. So this garners national attention. Maybe there wasn't a lot going on in 58. I don't know. All I know is that newspapers around the country are writing about the Herman household in Seaford, New York, that has all this crazy stuff going on. And an article lands in the hands of Dr. J.B. Rhine, who is the director of parapsychology at Duke University. And he decides, I need to go see this place. I need to go get to the bottom of this. So he takes a couple of the students and they go to the Herman household. We're going to fix this. We're going to figure it out. And it's so strange because it's been almost a month. There's at least 70 documented insane activity that's happened at the house. And they go there, they interview the family, but then activity just stops. That's it, we're done, bye. No more activity here.
This house is clean.
And the best conclusion that this director had was that the poltergeist, or Popper, as they refer to this poltergeist, was drawn to the teenagers in the house, the 2 children who were teenagers. I don't know if that's a good theory or not. I am not a ghost hunter. I'm not a paranormal investigator. And there's still so much that we don't know about the paranormal world. I guess it's possible. The Hermans eventually move away from the house and go on and live their life like normal, although the daughter famously said years later when she was asked if she ever saw a poltergeist, she was like, hell no, I lived my own horror. I'm not gonna go watch another freaking movie inspired by my house. But this and the articles about it are obviously what inspired Spielberg to write Poltergeist, along with a couple of cute little personal things of his. So it turns out Spielberg had a horrible fear of clowns growing up. Maybe he still does, I don't know. And there was a terrifying tree outside his childhood bedroom window. Ha! Two of my favorite parts about Poltergeist are actually from Spielberg's childhood, which I think is so, so cute.
1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000.
The other thing that I love about Poltergeist, before I get into the history here, or the other part of the history, is we really get to experience the film and the activity that happens in the Freeling household from two different perspectives. We get to watch it through the parents and the adult version. Then we also get all the fun, scary moments through the child's eyes in the bedroom and all the stuff Carol Ann goes through. And I just think it's a really well-rounded film that really showcases fear from different perspectives and makes it so great. But instead of nerding out more, let's continue on and talk more about history, shall we? So where's the truth in the movie and where does it rely on creative interpretation? Well, obviously the film takes everything to 11. There is no little girl that gets sucked into a closet. There's no Zelda Rubinstein yelling, "Don't go to the light, Carol Ann." There's no ectoplasm that's dropping from a portal in the living room. There's a lot that happens in the film that did not happen in the Herman household. But there are a couple things that are true. One of my favorite things is that in the movie, Stephen Freeling is an architect in a planned community, and him and his family just moved into this brand new house. And in reality, the Hermans lived in a planned community in a brand new house where they were the only homeowners. Interesting, factual. Of course, what's ironic about this and convenient is Spielberg, if you know his films, you know he loves Californian suburbs. Like E.T., so many of his movies are set in a freaking California suburb. But in the movie, Stephen doesn't know, even though he's one of the architects, that this development was put on top of an old native graveyard where he famously says,
"Moved the cemetery, but you left the bodies, didn't you?"
So fun fact, that's actually one of my biggest inspirations for starting my show Grave Hunter, because that happens a lot. There's a lot of cases in this country where people have moved the headstones, left the bodies, built something on top of it, and people experience weird things. Cheeseman Park in Denver, Google it, you're welcome. So was the graveyard idea totally fictional or was it rooted in some truth? This is where I did some sleuthing, folks. Okay, so Long Island, where Seaford and Amityville are, was originally the home to the, I'm gonna butcher it, I don't want to, the Massapequa tribe? If I'm saying that wrong, I'm so sorry. And this was a crazy time. So it's the 1600s, you have all the English coming over, all the Dutch coming over, and they just loved to kill Native Americans. That's just what they were doing. They just wanted the land for themselves, they didn't care. And in the center of all of this activity, you have a major POS, this guy named John Underhill, who was this religious zealot who just, loved killing Native Americans. It was like a pastime for him. And he's just killing, massacring where he goes, making his way through New York. And the Massapequa tribe, so sorry, gets wind that he's coming. So they build a fort and a stronghold right there in Fort Neck, which is in the Harbor Green neighborhood of Long Island, which is smack dab between Seaford and Amityville. Like, it's literally in the freaking middle. Their stronghold doesn't hold, unfortunately, and hundreds of them are slaughtered. And they're just kind of left there in mass burial pits. And, you know, there's fighting happening all over Long Island. And this is native land. So a couple of things you can safely assume. Number one, there's already graveyards, native graveyards that have been there for probably centuries that have just been pre-existing. Then you have a ton of probably mass graves from all these white people coming in and killing all of them. And on top of all of this, you have this fort now that's littered in bodies and artifacts, and architects don't even have it marked on a map because they don't want people going and digging things up. So here we go, okay? There's a lot of things to talk about here. Number one, native burial grounds. For whatever reason, especially starting at the turn of the century and into the 20s, are the most popular spot for people to go grave robbing and looting. It's like they got known, there was like this notion that floated the communities in like the 20s and earlier that Native Americans were these mystical people and ooh, maybe it's good luck to have their bones. So let's go raid some of the freaking graveyards and steal their bones and sell them or display them. It's just disgusting. It's horrible. This is so common and so bad that in the 1990s, so imagine how many years this was happening, centuries this was happening, but not until the 1990s was the Native American Grave Protection and Reparation Act passed, which basically is the closest thing they have to be able to protect their burial grounds and try to get back any things that have actually been stolen if it's in a museum or a private collection, but there's all these caveats. But my point is, we don't know for sure if the Herman house was built on top of a native burial ground. It's possible. We don't know for sure, and unless you want to go up and dig it, which don't, we won't know. But my point is, it's plausible. Same with the Amityville Horror. We don't know exactly what is underneath all of these homes. And so yeah, in Poltergeist, there's skeletons that are coming up in the swimming pool. Such a cool scene. Did that happen to the Herman household? No. But could there actually be skeletons buried underneath the house? Maybe. Could they be pissed off? Maybe. Do they have reason to be pissed off? I would say Native Americans have a lot of reason to be pissed off about a lot that's happened in this country, so we don't know. But it's fascinating as hell, isn't it? So there might be more truth to Poltergeist than we originally thought. There's no way to really know. But I'll say this. A lot of our country and the whole world is built on ancient burial grounds. We'll never know the full extent of what we're standing on at any given time. So always do your best to be respectful. Halloween is all about thinning the veil between the living and the dead and showing our respect for those that have come before us. And we should start that every day with the very ground we walk in because it was theirs first. So I will leave you guys with this. In this day and age, if your TV starts going all staticky, run away. Well, that's it, guys, for this run of horror history. This has been such a blast. Thank you guys so much for being so engaged with the polls, telling me what movies you want me to do history on. It has been so much fun. I will absolutely bring the series back. I'm going to be doing a little bit of a break because I have other content I'm bringing to you guys in the next couple months. But thank you guys, as always. Be sure to subscribe, like this, and follow me on Instagram so you're always up to date with all of the weird macabre stuff I'm doing. Until then, happy Halloween, creeps. Chin chin.